Welcome back to the Unbroken Arrows podcast. This is Greg. Catherine's not with me today. And today, my guests are Brett Bastian, who is the co-founder of Warriors Never Give Up, and Todd Stone, the current president of the Sioux Falls, South Dakota-based nonprofit that offers outdoor adventures for deployed or service-connected disabled veterans. Brett, Todd, welcome. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. So, Brett, as a co-founder of the Warriors Never Give Up, could you share the story of how the WNGU came into existence?
Yeah, I was out bow hunting one day, and in the moment of connection with God, He inspired the idea of giving back to our fellow veterans. And so I took that idea from the tree stand, shared it with Carl Kreitzman, the other co-founder of Warriors Never Give Up, over coffee. And Warriors Never Give Up was born in 2013.
Okay. And how did your conversations lead toward that nonprofit path? I mean, you say you're in the deer stand and you were inspired by that. Was it a tough sell to your co-founder?
No, Carl served 6 years in the Army, and so he was immediately on board, and we just needed to navigate and connect with the right people to do the appropriate paperwork so we could get it started as a nonprofit.
Okay, perfect. So what's the mission then of the Warriors Never Give Up organization?
I believe that we provide outdoor adventures for combat deployed service-connected disabled veterans so that we can change the lives of our nation's heroes one outdoor adventure at a time.
And has that particular mission always been the same, or has that changed focus over time?
I think it's stayed the same, but I defer that question to Todd. He's been there since the beginning.
Okay.
And so as a current president of Warriors Never Give Up and the longest standing board member, he can probably shed some more light with regards to whether that mission has changed over the years.
Okay. So Todd, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it has evolved up and down probably a little bit. Every time we have a different board, what we try to do is kind of reevaluate ourselves and our mission statement, and are we on the right track every year? So that conversation does come up. I think the biggest conversation is, should we just let all veterans, or if they should be combat connected, service disabled? What we try not to have is a bunch of the same people at all of our events. Mm-hmm. So getting the word out, communicating, to the veteran community, through the Guard, through the VA, through Legion, all that kind of stuff. We typically do not have an issue getting participants.
Okay.
What we've seen, though, is the transition from, the World War II veteran to the Vietnam veteran, and now a lot of the OIF, OEF generation, Desert Storm generation. Mm-hmm. But I'd say we're pretty much still on focus of that mission statement.
Okay. And this is a question that either one of you can answer. And just for clarification, at this point with the Warriors Never Give Up organization, who would be eligible to be, selected to attend or take part of an event? Because like active service military would not be?
Active service military, if they are combat veterans, are definitely allowed. We've had some events down at in Kansas, and we went somewhere else right away that was an active duty post besides Fort Riley. Where was that? Do you remember?
We did 2 events at Fort Riley, turkey hunts with active service members, and then we also brought up combat injured from the Warrior Transition Battalion out of Fort Riley, Kansas for I believe our first or second event.
Right.
Okay.
There's a lot of organizations that support them already down there, so we didn't want to just be one in a small number.
Sure.
One small organization in a large group of organizations trying to get their attention. Mm-hmm. We did, about that time, decided as a board to focus on South Dakota. Well, now we're at that point where we're expanding into other states, and the other side of the state in Rapid City and in Minnesota and potentially Nebraska and North Dakota.
Okay.
One of our sponsors, Mr. Denny Sanford, has been very gracious in allowing us to make that happen. And so we're just blessed for that opportunity.
Okay, so as president, Todd, what are your roles and responsibilities?
I don't really do anything.
I know better than that.
No. It's really just keeping the team on focus. Here's our expectations, and are we meeting those expectations? Are we meeting those little touch points? Manage the little things, the big things take care of themselves. A lot of the same stuff we do in business. As board members come and go, they really have to see and be at an event to really understand the significant impact that can happen. It's been very intentional from the beginning with Brett and Carl that there's an emotional effect. And most of the time, if you go to one of our events and you see us bring the Vietnam veterans up front and welcome them home, if you don't have a lump in your throat, then you're probably a cold-hearted you-know-what.
I understand. What is your background with regard to the military?
I spent 3 years active duty right out of high school.
Okay.
I was a combat engineer in the Army. Spent some time in Korea, a little bit of time, a couple years in the 101st Airborne in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Came back and was with the South Dakota Guard for about a year and a half, and then switched from South Dakota State University to North Dakota State. Joined the North Dakota Guard and drilled in Jamestown from 95 to 2002.
Okay.
At that time, I taught. I was an instructor, so I taught up at the RTI in Devil's Lake at Camp Grafton. When I moved back to Sioux Falls in 2002, I joined the reserves, and again, ironically enough, was an instructor unit, and they supported Devil's Lake. So I ended up going right back up there for 2 weeks at a time to teach some training or something.
And never dropped a fishing line in there probably at that time. Huh?
I would tell you that I took the early group when I was stationed there so that I could be done and on the water by 4:30 almost every day.
There you go.
Yeah, it was a really tough duty station. I'm going to tell you that right now. Made some great friends. A lot of those friends are involved with Warriors Never Give Up, or they're thinking about starting a chapter there. I then I took a promotion and went into a unit that basically took our soldiers as a unit, the last 200, 300, 400 groups of soldiers going to Iraq or Afghanistan, Guantanamo Bay, Horn of Africa, out of El Paso, Texas, at Fort Bliss.
Okay.
That was my last mobilization in 2011, 2012. We'd put them do their last 30 to 45 days of training, put them on a plane, and kind of set the bar as to what needed to happen when they went over the pond. And that's why I started my own company in 2012. And in 2003, I retired because I just had too many things on my plate.
Well, I'm sure you do keep busy in retirement. I found that out myself, that it seems like I'm maybe even a little bit busier than I was when I was working, which doesn't, make a whole lot of sense. But Brett, what about you? What's your background?
Now, let me tell you a little bit about Todd. So I think Todd was either our first or second board member of Warriors Never Give Up, 13 in 2013. And so I think it speaks volumes to what we've accomplished over the last 10 plus years, because he's now the president of Warriors Never Give Up for the board. And the fact that he's the longest standing board member and one of the first original board members is pretty special to me and Carl, but also just special from the standpoint that I really think that we are changing the lives of our nation's heroes through our outdoor adventures, and to have someone with that longevity and his service to his country is absolutely awesome and inspiring.
It's really the relationships that we've developed over the years, the Lake Erie Walleye Club, the NWT guys who basically arm wrestle over who gets to come and guide for our veterans. Same thing with our lodges and our pheasant hunts, and now our pit property hunts in Minnesota, and some of our other ATV ride events out in Rapid City. We really surrounded ourselves with good people, and it wasn't hard.
Well, talking with your executive director, Brett Lamb, prior to our podcast, that's one of the things that I was very impressed with, is the variety of activities that Warriors Never Give Up are doing and are trying to expand upon. And that's one of those things, hunting, fishing, that's not everybody's niche. Your UTV rides, as you're talking about that, I think that's one of my favorite pastimes, and to be able to do those kinds of things, just to get people outdoors, and talk,
Right.
and have those conversations. So, Brett, your service?
Yeah, so in 1986, I joined the South Dakota Army National Guard out of Madison, South Dakota. Went to basic training and unfortunately got hurt at basic training, and so my service time was 1.3 years.
Well, that's still an important part of your life, I'm sure.
Yes, it was. It made me a man.
I'm going to preface this next question this way, and you'll give a little bit of background maybe about me. But I'm a person of faith, and my faith is important to me, and it has been. The thing is, I think that everybody's faith may look a little bit different, and that's okay. For me, the events in my life helped me refocus my faith. My first wife died 2 months after her diagnosis of ovarian cancer, and then 2 months after that was when the country shut down with COVID events. And at the time that, you don't realize that at the time, but at that time that was when I needed human connection, and there just wasn't much of an opportunity for that. Our podcast is Unbroken Arrows, Healing Through the Hunt, and I was in need of that healing at that particular time. And some people don't like to use that word healing because that has maybe a different connotation to it, but I'm fine with it, and I think call it what it is. But 2 of my sons were nearby, but they needed that time to process as well, and so I did a little bit of turkey hunting in the spring, and I harvested my first deer in the fall of 2020, and those were healing events for me. And then that same fall, I hunted with my middle son during rifle season, but that was cut short because I came down with COVID then. So at that time, I kind of felt a little bit, what's next? What thing is going to happen again? My faith became a renewed priority for me at that particular time, and that led me to meeting Stephanie, my wife, my second wife. And she and her family have their own story of loss, and they're still trying to process that as well. But and their journey doesn't look like mine. But on your website, and Brett, you've already mentioned it, that Warriors Never Give Up is a God-inspired organization. So could you talk to what that means to you personally, and how that truly is part of your mission and how that guides you?
Yeah, God is our chief sponsor. He's the one that gave the message. I'm just the messenger. And so faith is extremely important to us. It's the single biggest thing that's helped me get through some tough times.
Take your time.
I think when you're in darkness, you feel alone. And I think it's the time where God wants you to trust in Him and His strength to pull you through. And when you get out of hell and you find heaven and earth, it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's in those times that we experience darkness or some type of tragedy or illness or something that can grab our attention. And I think it's the single biggest thing that has affected me in terms of my faithfulness in what God has done by sending His Son, Jesus Christ, to die for my sins on the cross, and through His resurrection grants my eternity because I believe He is my Savior. And so I feel faith is an extremely important part of a journey of healing. Mm-hmm. And I believe that in the outdoors, where there's no rat race, where we can hear God's soft, encouraging voice, is a powerful place for us to reconnect with Him and allow that healing to occur, not only mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely, I would agree wholeheartedly with you, and I can paint the picture of specific times for me. When you're out turkey hunting, before the sun is even close to coming up, and you start to hear the world
come alive.
Yeah,
the birds and everything. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
It is, and this may sound foolish to some people, maybe not to the two of you, but I enjoy listening to the sound of the wind. Now, not 50 miles an hour 3 days in a row, but there are just so many different things that if you stop and take the time to recognize what they are, what they represent, and it is healing. Pure and simple, it is healing. So, but one of the things that I want, as we talk about this, I think, when I say I think a person's faith is important, I'm not talking about a denomination. I'm not talking about any particular path that somebody chooses to follow. But I think that a faith is important, and a faith is important for the people around you as well, the children you raise. So with regard to, was that one of the reasons, I guess, that you were drawn toward Warriors Never Give Up?
Well, obviously, surrounding myself with good people, and if those people are similar to me in morals and values and beliefs, that meant a lot to me. Just as you said, as long as, you have to have three things in this world, and that's faith, hope, and love. And if you don't have your faith, I find it really hard to get through difficult things. If you don't have hope, you're not looking forward to the future. You're just going with the flow. That's not who I am, right? And obviously, we all need to love and be loved. If we're all going to be leaving this world someday, the last thing any of us would ever say is, "Oh, I wish I would have spent more time at work,"
right?
Or "I wish I would have done this." The regrets we have are all not helping someone else, or not doing more for our friends and family, or not being there for somebody. So this feeds me as well. It allows me to see the difference that we're making. Like Brett had said, you have to go through something stressful, right? For there to be a relationship or something traumatic is significant in each one of our lives, whether it's a death of a parent or whatever. But when people come together to support those in need, that's really where you can see the blessing of God's hope and love, and that's really what all of us are doing.
And you mentioned the word relationship, and I think that would be a word that would define what your organization is trying to accomplish on these events, or when you have veterans and those that are participating in your events, is you want them to be able to feel comfortable enough to start a conversation with somebody. You want to be able to have them continue that conversation, because from just my own personal experience, and I am not comparing my experience to those veterans that have gone through combat situations and different situations during their career. So please understand that. The thing that, for me, that really started the whole process of getting back on track and healing were conversations. And conversations with other people also made me realize that some of these people that I communicated with went through some things that were horrible. And you start to get a perspective of what you're dealing with, and that it's different. It's not better or worse, but you start to understand that there are other people out there that are dealing with things, and they find ways to heal. They find ways to get better. And I think that's part of, in some cases, the people that are the participants of your events. That's the starting process.
Yeah, so I feel that we all need an awakening, that moment, or that defined moment in our lives that we hit rock bottom, and we need to find that hope, we need to find that love, we need to find that faith. But it's not just veterans. Right. We all are struggling. Every one of us, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's a lodge owner, whether it's a boat owner, or whether it's a veteran participating in an event, we all have something that defines us and that awakens us. And I think if we can foster faith We can allow people to take a knee from the daily struggles of their lives to connect with like-minded individuals. We can provide nature's therapy, and we can heal the mind, body, and spirit. And we see that. We've seen it time and time again, whether it be a testimonial from a volunteer, from a board member, from a lodge owner, again, from a boat owner, from a veteran. You know, we all have a daily struggle or some type of struggle that we're facing. And we all have the ability to use this nature therapy as a way for us to awaken and find our self-worth and our self-confidence so that we can continue to put one foot in front of the other.
And you make a great point, and I'm going to circle back to talking about volunteers again. But every once in a while, you know, you get feedback from what we're doing with our podcast. And sometimes people will ask me the question, well, how does that deal with healing through the hunt? Or what did that topic, how did that, you know, tie into what you really want to try to accomplish with the podcast? And our point is, you know, bottom line is we want people to be able to, if they want to enjoy the outdoors and they don't know how, to be able to give them opportunities. That's why we talk to the game and parks. That's why we talk to organizations like you. Well, then they might say, well, I'm not a veteran. And your point about volunteers and those, you can get involved in all of these types of activities. You don't have to be a hunter, do you, to be a volunteer?
No.
You can do the types of things that...
Or a sponsor.
Or a sponsor. Bottom line is that without volunteers, these events don't happen, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And without sponsors, they don't happen.
Right. So, you know, sometimes I stop and kind of get on a peach crate here and talk about that because, you know, we are trying to fulfill a mission to get people outdoors and start to heal. Our title says healing through the hunt, but healing is the important word.
Well, again, you know, it's called PTSD.
Correct.
It's something we can't see, right? Typically. So how do we get veterans to open up and talk about things? You'll get a Operation Enduring Freedom veteran who doesn't feel he's worthy to go to our events because the Vietnam veterans are the generation before him, and he feels like, well, we only went through this. They went through hell. You know, we got a welcome home. They didn't. Like all this stuff. And I'm like, it has more to do with, you know, that person's heart. But everybody is going through something, like you guys said. And it is emotional. And we're all dealing with something emotional, whether it's a loss of a parent, or if it's a loss of a child, or if it's, you know, an empty nest syndrome. Your youngest is now out of the house. We're all dealing with something. And if your first instinct is to, you know, me, or I, you're probably not getting it. If you don't have the ability to care for someone else or want to help someone else, you're probably not coming to one of our events. That's just what we've seen. You're probably not on our board. You're probably not a sponsor. You know, all those different things are all situationally positioned us with all the right people around us.
Sure.
And that's a true blessing.
And, you know, people have donated their time, talents, and treasures over the last 10 years, and we encourage people to be active. If you're a sponsor, we want you to come to an event. We want you to be able to feel the emotional connection that we feel. If you're a volunteer, we want you to be able to come and just give. If you're a veteran and you don't feel worthy, which we do hear that a lot, you need to come and participate so you can tell your other fellow veterans what we do. Because that connectability brings us together, and it provides credibility as well. And if we have connectability and credibility, we can accomplish amazing things. And, you know, since we've started, we've had over 500 participants and over 50 events. I don't know exact number, but I know it's over those numbers. That's a lot for a group of people that have donated their time, treasures, and talents to provide outdoor adventures for our nation's heroes.
I would say that we're closer to 1,000. Usually it's 10 events, 10 veterans. And we've been around for 10 years. So.
Sure. Now, we're talking events. Let's talk specifically about the events that you do or have done in the past, and maybe even talk about those that are maybe in the planning stages for the future. So if a person was to come to an event just to see what it's all about, what would they see?
Well, first of all, we started, Carl and I had the idea of we love being in the outdoors, we love hunting, and so we started with pheasant hunting. But I met two people, Mike Doris and Dan Geiken, and they forever changed Warriors Never Give Up because they brought in walleye fishing. And they brought in a group of passionate, loving, caring, giving people that just want to give their time, treasures, and talents to what we offer. And so it started out with pheasant hunting. We moved on to walleye fishing, and then I'll let Todd kind of expand on what's now and in the future. But it's amazing the things that now we offer that we didn't offer in the very beginning.
Sure.
Well, so as we've had different board members come and go, right? Everybody's on the board for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. We had some of that in the beginning. We had this, here's a code of conduct. Here is the expectation. We expect every single one of our board members to give financially and of their time. We expect each board member to be championing in an event that year, or helping out with our Stampede night, or things of that nature. But really, we've talked about the turkey hunts, and we've got the pit property hunts where it's a goose and duck. And I mean, I haven't been to that event yet, but that's the one event I want to try to get to. Sure. It's in Fergus Falls, Minnesota. It's through a bunch of guys that Ben knows. He's got a lake place up there. Our executive director, Ben Lamp. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you go out there, you make breakfast, eat a little something, pop your head, shoot a few things, go down, eat some deer sticks, turn around. A couple hours later, you're shooting some geese.
Sure.
And you haven't even left the pit. It's all heated. You can sleep there if you want to.
Right.
I mean, talk about a guy's weekend. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
The events that we have out in Rapid City, whether it's fly fishing, whether it's riding side-by-sides, UTVs, four-wheelers, whether it's horseback riding, there's not as many lakes out there. So how do we diversify? We get down into Lincoln. There's some good pheasant hunting partnerships down there. You get up into Webster area. Again, those relationships through the Lake Area Walleye Club and Mike Doris and Dan Geiken and Brian Fowles and Darren Lewin, who has Torrey Lake Lodge. I mean, he's been there from the beginning, doing our corporate fundraising fishing event out there, and then our Pro-Am. We have another one that we do kind of up in the Lake Ponset area that we run out of Gilby's Marine. Used to be Wheeling Marine. It's called Gilby's Marine now. Yep. But we don't always know where the fish are biting, so we don't say what lake we're fishing until that morning. But the guides all know where they're going. Whether it's a ice fishing event with snow bears, because we have a relationship with the Snow Bear Corporation, and just guys in the know. I get called a lot because my name pops up with different veteran things, whether it's the VCP project here in Sioux Falls or, whatever we can do to curb veteran homelessness and all that stuff. Just extremely proud to be able to be connected with, a type of giving organization.
What are some of the ways that you fundraise for Warriors Never Give Up?
Again, it's relationships. We have repeat customers, repeat sponsors. Some of that is through the Lake Area Walleye Club guys, whether it's Mercury Outboards or it's Scott's Lumber, or it's everybody who has typically Johnstone Supply is just, they've been there again almost from the beginning, and they're just great people. We do a trap shoot out at Hunters Point with them every year, and same thing with the night of the Stampede, and their heart's in the right place. They want to do what they can. They understand the mental help that is needed. But really, it gets to be a little bit of a brotherhood of, hey, thanks for all you do, and thanks for going above and beyond. And it doesn't hurt to talk trash a little bit. And oh, really? Can't believe you missed that one. That's the type of stuff. It is a lot of fun. But really, our sponsors, Mr. Sanford, like I said, That's a 5-year commitment from him for us to grow into other states. That wasn't very hard, just because the right people kind of came to the surface.
I mentioned volunteers, and as many nonprofit organizations, they just don't operate without the volunteers. How does one that has an interest in becoming a volunteer, how do they do that? How do they go about that?
Well, they can reach out to Ben Lamp, our executive director, at warriorsnevergiveup.org, or they can call the phone number on the website and connect with him and let him know that they would like to volunteer, and then they can go from there.
We do get a lot of Facebook messaging, and it's an automatic response first, and then our social media group then picks that up and gets back to those people, or Ben does, or I do. But really, the website is kind of the kingpin. It's the one location where you can kind of get everything, see everything, look at the board members, but also, fill out the paperwork to be a participant, a sponsor, or a volunteer.
If someone's listening and they know of someone, a veteran, that they would think or would hope that they would participate, and maybe haven't participated in any kind of event like this, can someone nominate?
Yeah, that actually happens a lot. We might get a daughter who thinks her dad needs to go on an event and get out of the house or something. Spouses do that a lot. And again, just reach out to Ben. His information, the phone numbers, it goes right to Ben's cell phone. And, he's the single point of contact who knows exactly what's going on at all times.
Okay. One of the things, and I was talking to Ben about this before we started, when we started our podcast back in December, and we have met a lot of wonderful people, one of the things that really came to the forefront very quickly were the number of groups, number of organizations that are helping veterans, helping active duty, and that whole spectrum, from disabled to the PTSD side of things. Are there any times where some of these organizations coordinate to try to maybe refer veterans that maybe have an interest in what a different organization does more so than what, say, your organization does?
Sure. We have a lot of friends across the fence, too, whether it's Pheasants Forever or what's the Turkey Federation?
National, NWTF?
Yeah. But
National Wild Turkey Federation.
Thank you. We have friends from there. We actually, Brett and I had the good fortune of taking a World War II veteran on a turkey hunt quite a few years ago now, and he's since passed, but he's been on some fishing events and us, but we teamed up with the couple guys from Hartford from the NWTF and got to take him out there to Winter, South Dakota. One-room schoolhouse was our sleeping accommodations, and the gentleman, Brett probably remembers his name, South Dakota World Couples Quick Draw Champion. And so we got to shoot some guns in his back building and see how quick we were, right? I mean, it's so cool. But that turkey hunt has a near and dear place in my heart, just from the stories I heard from our friend Ordell Winterton from Garrettson, World War II guy, just went through a lot. Told us his story, how he kind of came in and out of consciousness after he was injured, and just we have no idea. We don't fathom the amount of things that generation saw and had and that they dealt with, and then didn't come home and talk about any of it.
Right. That's a big thing. As a teacher, there was a World War II veteran in the area that I lived in, northeast Nebraska, that came and spoke to our students about their experience, and they were also they were captured at the Battle of the Bulge, and then was a prisoner of war for the remainder of the war. And you talk about kids today, and attention span and everything like that. These kids didn't move in their seat. No. They heard the story, and it was amazing.
Well, and keep in mind, there was no draft.
Right.
These people volunteered because it was their duty, and it was the right thing to do to keep us free.
And that's what's happening now, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that hasn't been talked about that you'd like to include?
I would say, one of the biggest things for us is those relationships. If we could get a good chapter, say up in the Devil's Lake area, and get one in the Fergus Falls area, and get one in Rapid City, and we got ours here in Sioux Falls. But if we could do the same thing down in Lincoln, and maybe if we can get somebody over by Sioux Center or something that or Sioux City. I mean, these are the ways for us to grow. I think we have a way to sort of franchise this. We've been working on something like that. What we don't care to be is some of the other organizations that get so big that the dollars don't go
directly
to the veterans.
Right.
Yeah, and we're not perfect by any means. We are an organization. It takes money to run, and we can't have the board doing every little thing because it's too discombobulated. So we've run it like a business, and it's been very good for us. It's allowed us to keep on task and focused. But if we can be in that 90 to 93 percentile of every dollar spent goes right to the veteran or the veteran hunt or those types of things, that's where we want to be. We don't ever want to lose focus of why we're here.
And as well, we don't want to lose focus on the fact that God is our chief sponsor. And through our outdoor adventures, we can foster a sense of faith, hope, love, self-worth. And it not only changes the lives of those that are there that day, but that expands to their families and to their communities. And what an amazing thing to think about how one small little idea in a tree stand has now expanded to over potential 1,000 participants and however many of over 50 events. And it just takes passion, it takes time, it takes connectability, connecting with the right people. And we've done that this entire time. And you have to have a purpose. And all of that we give through our outdoor adventures.
Your comment reminds me of another conversation I had recently with regard to person suffering from PTSD from their experiences while being an active duty military sometimes goes beyond that experience in the fact that family members taking care of them once they are home suffer from maybe a different type of
it's
PTSD.
caregiver syndrome, right?
Right.
It's always hardest on the caregiver.
Right.
Yeah.
So the family members are also people that are in need of the healing too.
Amen.
And so if somebody was listening and they had an idea or a thought about or had a name to give or something with regard to these chapters that you want to expand, should they get a hold of Ben?
Yes.
Is that the process?
Yep.
That they should go through?
We try to push everything through Ben because he's, again, the guy who has his eyes and ears on this, every day. That is his job. And then as we come together as a board, we talk about things, make decisions, and then, point and shoot.
Sure. Well, gentlemen, Brett, Todd, thank you for taking the time to be a part of our podcast. I would love to hear updates as the year goes on, and I'll probably communicate through Ben and find out if there's any event that you'd like to highlight. One of the things I really would like to learn more about are your UTV rides. That's something that I think is, from the interviews that I've conducted, that's unique. And I'm sure there's going to be more things that take place over the years.
I think Ben might be the one going to that event this year. So just talk to him. He's the one that has his fingers on the pulse there.
Okay, perfect. Well, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you as well.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, sir.
You bet. If you or someone you know is thinking of suicide or in need of crisis intervention, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. Additionally, here are 3 ways for veterans and their loved ones to receive confidential crisis support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Contact the Veterans Crisis Line, dial 988, then press 1 to be connected to a Veterans Crisis Line responder. If you would rather, you can chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat, or you can text 838-255. On behalf of Catherine and me, to all our listeners, take some time to get outside, enjoy the outdoors, and experience its healing powers. With that, until next time.